To remind you, I'm fulfilling a lifelong ambition and having an in-depth discussion with one of my heroes, PJ Harvey, about her music. That was The Dancer from To Bring You My Love. Let's have a look now. Yeah, having been in a band for as long as I have, it's 17 years I've been in Elbow now. I can't imagine how it would be to be a solo artist. And I was wondering, creatively, do you have trusted opinions? Do you have anybody who's a sounding board that you can test your ideas on, who you know won't just placate you with their answer?
Yes, I do, and I think that's very important to have that. I mean, like, you know, when you're in a band, then you have it automatically.
Whether you like it or not, actually.
Yeah. But no, throughout the last sort of 10, 12 years of my writing time, I've had continuous support from very few people that I trust implicitly with their judgment of my songs, and I send them my demos at the point of when the song's finished and want to talk to them about what they think and get their opinion and direction.
Are you allowed to go mad at them if you don't agree initially? Are you allowed to lose your temper with them?
Well, I think I always take on board what they're saying, but the bottom line is I'm my own hardest judge, really. So I already have quite a gut instinct about what is good and what is not good, and more often than not, they're only reaffirming what I was feeling anyway. But it gives me the courage to maybe ditch some songs or the other way around and to follow them.
I think I'd have to have that. You see, I've got 5 sisters, and there's 3 of them in particular that really don't pull the punches where my stuff's concerned. So you've worked with loads of people who I admire. Among them is Marius de Vries, who's a lovely man. You worked on Is This Desire with him, and the next song I've chosen is from that album. It's The Garden. Tell us a little bit about this song. Am I right in thinking there's more sort of Christian religious imagery on this album than any of the others?
I think there's, I don't know if I'd say more than the others. I think it's a well of intrigue, Christianity than the Bible. You know, you can never dry up from finding inspiration in there as a writer. And I was weaving it a lot into storytelling on this album. And in fact, I think that this album, Is This Desire, is one of my personal favourites. I feel very attached to. I think it was at a point where I was really at a peak with my writing, and that comes and goes. You know, you can't always burn quite so brightly, but I think I was very pleased with that period of work in my life.
It's a beautiful, beautiful album, and I've felt many things listening to your music, and that's the only one that's actually made me cry a couple of times. It is a very beautiful record. And am I right in thinking, I mean, you talk about location a lot in your songs, you know, as simple as sometimes the river, or in The Devil, the song we're going to hear in a little while, you mentioned a milestone, and I was wondering, how often do you go back to where you grew up when you're thinking about, when you're imagining scenarios for your songs? Well,
it depends what I'm interested in with my writing at that time. What I'm wanting to explore. I mean, if it is an album that is in need of a certain location or a certain age, then I will go back and sort of have a look at the landscape of where I grew up to draw imagery from. And also, I think specifics are very important in lyrical writing, and specifics come from knowing territory well and being able to draw on those things. So it depends, because then other albums I won't need that at all, or other albums would be purely fictional, imaginary landscape, and I'd, for inspiration, then I might draw more from looking at paintings actually than jumping into other people's minds.
Do you have a favourite painter?
Oh, I have many painters that it'd be hard for me to say this is my favourite painter. I go through different phases of liking other painters more than others, and
I mean, in terms of that, then, The Garden, was it a particular garden?
No, it wasn't a particular garden.
Okay. Well, I've chosen that song because I wanted also to reflect, as well as on where you draw your lyrics from, which is, as we've discussed, sort of imaginings based on what you're into at the time, as well as your personal experiences, as well as, you know, wanting to tell a good yarn, it seems. I also want to pick on the remarkable sort of originality of your music as well. The drum pattern on this song is something I love very, very much. Can you tell us anything about that? Who's responsible for that groove?
That's Rob Ellis, and it grew out of many different configurations. I mean, I do a version of The Garden live at the moment, and the version I do is how it ever began, the sort of the demo version, which was with a drum machine pattern that's very different to that, and the main body of song was played on a very low-tuned guitar.
Okay.
And then what it became on the album was quite different, like you can hear. And Rob Ellis came up with that crazy drum pattern, which only an insane man could have come up with. And Mick Harvey's playing the bass. I think the bass is equally as important on how the song actually became in the end.
It is fantastic. Okay, let's have a listen to that now. This is PJ Harvey's The Garden. So we've discussed how writing for piano was something you did to stretch yourself. You've done this in different ways over the years. You've moved to different places in the world in order to set yourself up new experiences to work off and write off. What would you say was the most different thing, apart from the sort of the physical of writing for piano? What would you say was the most different thing about this record?
I think... Well, there was a number of things that were quite different for me. I began what I call this sort of period of writing in the moment, whereas up until that point, when I'm working towards a record, I'd be maybe for years beforehand collecting pieces of music, word ideas, slowly formulating a pattern to base the album upon. Whereas with this record, I would... I tend to write every morning anyway. But what I would do would be to take those words that I'd written in the morning and work on that for that day, and that was the song for that day. And so it was working very much in the moment of what the day brought.
Right.
And there was no preparation beforehand, so that was different.
Quite a discipline, that as well.
But also, I was wanting to move back into... I was looking a lot at folk music, and I was wanting to move back into the storytelling element.
That comes through.
Yes,
what were you reading while you were working on this record?
Oh, I was reading... I read a lot, so I was reading many things, because the record came out over 3 years of writing work.
Oh, okay.
I can remember reading... No, I can't remember what I was reading.
That's all right. That's fine. That's fine. It's got sort of a very lovely thread to it. It's very fragile, and it shares. It shares this sort of beautiful dark thing that you've got in previous records as well. But there's also a playful edge to it in places. And I don't know. Could I guess that you've been very happy and relaxed these days?
I think. I definitely think as the years go by, I've become, more peaceful as a person, I would say, in terms of my relationship with myself and the world. And, that does make me feel like I'm probably happier now than I have been.
That's great.
Yeah, and it seems to continue. I mean, life just seems to continue to become more wonderful for me as I get older, so I actually quite look forward to it, really.
Well, from my point of view, your music does as well, Polly. I can't thank you enough for talking to us about your records. I think the way that you mesh yourself with the stories that you're telling and the energy that you put into your music, as well as the very, very fragile attention to detail, it etches it in stone. It's part of everybody's must. You're very, very much part of musical history, I think. Thanks once again. The album's absolutely gorgeous. We're going to play The Devil from the record right now, and there's a line in the song. It says, "The devil wanders into your soul." Well, you wandered into all of our souls some years ago, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks, Polly.
Oh, thanks very much, guys. It's been nice to talk to you as well.
Cheers. Take care.